Hello. Um, so I wanted to take this time to go over and break down major points from both chapter 6 on public opinion and also chapter 7 on voting and elections. Yeah. So I'm going to basically give you guys my kind of a kind of the most important, like, I'm gonna try to break this down and leave you guys with my kind of points about what the most important things to take from these two chapters are. Yeah. So if 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 you have to think back at some point, like what is public opinion and what's voting in elections, then these will be, I think, the most important things to remember and recall from this class, and specifically on these topics. Okay. So what is public opinion? Public opinion briefly is it's a kind of a formation of people's attitudes on politicians, policies, ideas, events. Yeah. So how exactly, like, how is public, like, what what like generates public opinion, or what kind of shapes people's attitudes on policies or politicians. There are a couple of factors that are really important to how public opinion is formulated. So the first thing is kind of like um, political socialization, which means process by which people come to become politicized, I guess. Yeah, and that means that people generally are socialized at an early age. So people tend not to change their opinions much, if at all, um, about political parties or politicians or ideas. People grow, but it's also true that um, people are very polarized or have a particular party that their parents were affiliated with. It's harder for them to then change. But what? So how? Where are we socialized? I mean, people are socialized first and foremost through their family. Um, like they're, what your parents think about particular politicians is very important. Um, about political particular political parties is also important. And there also we are also socialized in schools as well. Yeah. So like we're also socialized through like religious institutions like churches or synagogues or mosques. We are also socialized through um, other kind of like political parties. Yeah. So we come to our opinions about things as through that process. And there is one other thing that's important to note about public opinion. That's polarization, which is the process by which people become more and more polarized. Sorry. Yeah, like people become more and more partisan. Their party affiliations become more extreme. So people, both Democrats and Republicans, tend to now, as because polarization has become more and more extreme, people tend to like not like the other party, right? Yeah. So that's an attitude. That's a kind of public opinion also gets split around 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 these kind of polarized issues. Like there are wedge issues and there are like hot debates on politicians. Partially, polarization is also one reason that there haven't really been many landslide victories in terms of like elections, because people tend to vote more along their party rather than voting for someone who's, more, I guess, transitional or sort of transformational. But those politicians aren't, there are really, those politicians are less and less common. The ones that could get all the Republicans to vote for a Democrat or all the Democrats to vote for Republican, because we're in a world that's polarized, that's becoming more and more challenging. Yeah. And the last thing to mention on public opinion is how it's measured. So things like polls are important to kind of get a temperature check on where the public is. So people tend to call people if they want to. So if they want to take a poll, people usually call generally, usually it's like likely voters who are registered and voted in the last 1 or 2 elections. And those are people who tend to be called and tend to not the ones who are like polled. Yeah. And the last thing I mentioned is that polling is maybe not as accurate as many pollsters would like. So my question to you guys is like what is the purpose? I guess, should we keep polling? Is it so worth it to poll people now that now it seems like polling has become, particularly for politicians, has become less and less accurate? Yeah. So let's jump over to voting in elections now. So okay. So how do we what is voting? Voting is the process by which people choose or decide on a particular political candidate. And how do we like, how can we vote? What's the process by which people can vote in the United States? So you have to register to vote, which is usually a form. Yeah, it's like a form you fill out either online or by mail. Yeah. But who are the eligible voters? Who can vote, rather? So you have to be 18. You have to be a citizen of the United States. You also usually have to be a resident of a state in order to be able to vote in that state. And you have to also be registered either through a political party or independently. Yeah. There are certain laws and Supreme Court cases, decisions, and rulings that have helped people have helped people with with being able to vote, because it wasn't always easy for everyone to vote. So yeah, and so how do elections work? What's a campaign? Campaigns are the they're the means by which someone attempts to become a politician. So how do elections work in the United States? That's a complicated question. So tend to like people tend to have to register with a particular party if they want to vote in a primary. Primary elections are the the first election. It's where people choose their delegate for a political particular party. Um, and then after that, there's the general elections, which are tend to usually be two major parties candidates who head off to kind of see who will be the next X, Y, or Z politicians. So there's there's something here called the Electoral College, which I'm sure everyone's heard about. But so the Electoral College is the process by which people by which delegates choose the president. The president's the only one in America who is voted through the Electoral College. Every all other representative senators are all chosen directly by the people, and that there's no other process by which people have to go through to choose who is the nominee or who is the next representative or senator. Here the only thing that we have that's elected through Electoral College is the president, and usually it's states tend to like more populist states, meaning states that have like more people have more say in the Electoral College than other states. Yeah, so it's not exactly it's not really an even process, and it's also not direct. So let's go finally to direct democracy. So what is democracy? So democracy, well, okay, in Greek, democracy or demokratos, so demos in Greek means people, and kratos in Greek means power. So what exactly is democracy? It's the power of the people. And we live in what I would call, a representative democracy, and that representatives we elect people who then do, or sometimes do what we want them to do, rather. Yeah, and a direct democracy is more of, it's more people having direct power in the decision-making process. So that would mean that people would be able to write laws. People would be able to choose policies and affect change in that form of that kind of way. And it's so the closest we have here to actual direct democracy are things like ballot initiatives, which are they're like usually they're done by the state. There's no federal ballot initiative, but ballot initiative is when people go vote in an election. There are sometimes initiatives that people can vote up or down on. So one recent example is in the 2020 election in Florida. In addition to voting for everyone else, all the in addition to voting for the politician, the people voted to increase the minimum wage to $15 in the state, and that passed. Yeah. So that's just one example of how direct democracy works or can work. So my question for you guys is on votings and elections is how how um how effective is direct democracy? What are the pros and cons of direct democracy? All right. So these are my core notes and a couple of questions for you guys to think about. But yes, thank you for watching this video lecture. And yeah.